Day so far today, and besides just hearing it from me, that they actually get to hear it from somebody that's firsthand, and kind of explaining the stories of interaction with law enforcement, and some maybe do's and don'ts that can help them in their careers in law enforcement. So it's up to you, whoever would like to go first. I'll let you make the call.
Ross wants to go. Ross would like to go first.
All right.
Hello everybody. Like I said, my name's Ross. What I'm going to ask you to do is something I never wanted people to do throughout my whole life. And just in your head, judge me right now and tell me if you can tell anything about my story, my past, what I've been through, where I've been, what I did or didn't do. And that says a lot, because how you perceive somebody isn't a reflection of that person, it's a reflection of you and your understanding. And you can make a lot of misconceptions. I'm going to quote lyrics from a song that I like. It's, I can be loud man, I can be silent, I could be young man or I could be old. I can be a gentleman, I can be violent, I could turn hot man or I can be cold. I can be just like the calm before the storm, both waiting for all hell yeah to break loose. I could be innocent or I could be guilty. Doesn't mean that I don't believe in no noose. And that's the reality of situations. I've lived a very varied life. I've had a lot of interactions with police. And it's not because I'm a bad person. I made bad choices. And I'm going to rewind it and start back from when I started noticing I was a little bit different than other people. I was always different. I was sick a lot growing up. My family life was a lot different than most people. My aunt committed suicide when I was 5 or 6. Parents divorced at an early age. And that really shaped how I responded to situations. I was very self-centered and egotistical. I'm also a recovering addict. And one thing about addiction is people think it's only about substances. It's so much deeper than that. I was addicted to reacting on emotion and getting things my way, manipulating situations to be my way long before I ever picked up a substance. The substance is a symptom. People think that people are addicted to substances as well. It's actually the chemical release from the brain of using those substances. People can be addicted to things that aren't even substances, whether it be a cell phone, sex, sports. You can name it, and if you can think of it, you can name it, and it can lead to unmanageability in life. And my first use of substances led to unmanageability. The first time I ever drank, I got blackout drunk and slept behind a department store that used to be on Kirk Road in Austintown in the middle of February underneath a mattress covered with broken glass and mud. And that was freshman year of high school. That was okay to me, I guess. I didn't realize that was consequences. First time I ever smoked pot, I got in trouble. And it wasn't direct trouble or as severe as that, but it took me someplace. As I got older, I started having, actually let me rewind a bit. In 6th grade, I was pulled out of class and put on probation by a police officer for a crime that I committed outside of school about 6 months earlier, which was vandalism. And that really shaped my early opinion of police, in the fact that I was pulled out of class for a crime that was non-related to school whatsoever, and then here I am being publicly embarrassed in front of my classmates for something not relative to that. So I had a lot of animosity towards police at an early age. The next big event that happened in my life, and that was without using as well, let me reiterate that as well. Eventually in high school, I got away with drinking and blacking out and using for a bit. Eventually I got put into rehab about my junior year of high school. I did everything to just jump through the hoops, to just make it through, fake pee, all that stuff. And then about a year later or so, I was arrested, taken out of school, and then I was put into the drug court program. Most people at that point would stop doing what they were doing. But see, that's the thing about addiction and people with mental health things, is they might know that they should, but they don't want to, or they don't have the ability to do so. I ended up getting put into the juvenile detention center 3 different times for using, just for dirty urine. And the last time that I was put in there, I was trying to go to YSU to better myself, and because of Dirty P, I was locked up. I had a really hard time understanding how that was going to benefit me. And it took me a lot of years to really begin to trust police officers, because I always viewed them as out to get me. Because a lot of them condescended to me. They viewed me as less than because of the things that I was doing. And it was hard for me to let go of that resentment. Around that time, it became more apparent that I had mental health things. I had been diagnosed with mental health troubles when I was 12 or 13, but I never really paid it any mind. But my life began spiraling out of control with family, with friends, with romantic relationships. And my solution to this was to move away. I moved to Las Vegas. I had problems there. From there I went to Washington. I had problems there. Everywhere I went, pretty much, I had interactions with the police. This really came to a head when I was living in Northern California, when I suddenly wasn't able to sleep. I wasn't eating, and my thoughts became progressively more and more disturbed, I guess I would say. And I've never been a violent person. I don't have the structure for violence, if you look at me. But I could be emotionally abusive, and I could especially be emotionally abusive to myself. But what was happening there was I was becoming completely detached from reality. And I ended up walking down the street in Arcata, California, which is in Humboldt County. And I was thinking that there was this good and dark force, and it was relative to day and night, and there was people that were out to get me. And the police, they stopped me because somebody said that I was walking in the middle of the street. And when they stopped me, I thought that it was good cop, bad cop, but quite literally good cop, bad cop, where one was the epitome of evil, one was the epitome of good, and it was shifting between them based upon their look in their eyes. They asked me who I was. I said that I was Jack Johnson, because I didn't even know who I was at that point. And when they put me in the police car, I thought that they were taking me to some kind of place that would get me away from regular society and shoot me out to where actual people were, because I couldn't understand how people act. Like how people could be so racist, so sexist, so violent, so hateful. I still don't understand that. In good mental health, I don't see how people can be that way. But I didn't think that what I was existing in was the real world with real people. They put me in the psych ward, and there I stayed for 3 days. My mother came out. They got me out of there. I lost all my friends. I ended up losing the relationship that I was in out there, and I ended up moving back to Ohio. When I came back to Ohio, I stopped taking the medication because the medication made me feel sick. Eventually, I started to party again. I ended up having even a more severe psychotic break that time, and that lasted for the better part of a year. I ended up in various psych wards. It was a horrifying experience. I literally thought I was in hell. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. If I had a religion, it would be love, but I thought I was in hell. I thought that every single person was out to get me. I thought that, and I also thought at one point that I was the chosen one to save the world from how it was. That's pretty frightening because it's not metaphorical. Those are things that I literally thought, and none of those things happened because I was a bad person or because there's something wrong with my actions. It was because of brain chemistry. They had diagnosed me with bipolar, and the doctor that I was seeing at that time later diagnosed me as having drug-induced psychosis, which I had a hard time letting loose of. Around this summer, I started seeing, I had a friend, and I wasn't really drinking at this time. I was just smoking weed, and I started to realize how my actions were towards people that I cared about, how manipulative I could be, how abusive I could be. And when I started to see those things, I really looked at myself and thought, how can I become a better person? So I went into recovery. Love has a lot of power to shape people and help people for the better. And that was one of the things for me that changed my whole life around. there's a Norse rune for love, and it looks like a key, and that always fascinates me because it was a key to a whole different understanding for me. I used to be so judgmental. I was afraid of the police. I thought all the police were the same. I thought that everybody was out to get me, basically. Everybody wanted to harm me. I thought everything was everybody else's fault. I took no accountability for myself, and that led me to a miserable, horrible life. I got, my clean date is September 2nd of 2016, so I'm coming up on 6 months clean. My life has changed dramatically. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of physical things. What I have is serenity and peace, respect, humility, tolerance, and I have honor today. I didn't ever have any honor. There's no honor among thieves. And how I used to be, I was a liar, a chief, a thief, a manipulator, and I was somebody that would just pass the bullshit on everybody else. When I was, pardon my language, I used to blame everything on the police that arrested me, not my actions. But over my life and interactions with police, there was this one thing that kept happening. They started treating me with respect and honor and dignity, and I started to see them the same way. You see, I'm a person before I'm any of these other things, whether it be an addict or someone with a mental illness or something like that. Just like everybody is a person before they are a police officer, they're a person before anything else that they are, and you have to see the humanity in everybody, because if you don't see the humanity in other people, you're losing your own humanity in that sense. Because I'm no better than anybody, I'm no worse than anybody. Anybody here has the potential to do the greatest good or at the same time the greatest evil, and if you think that you're not capable of doing those things, I would suggest that you might want to reevaluate that. Some of the worst things I've done were justified by thinking that they were good. And I have to be very cautious of what I do personally in my life because I don't want to go back to how I used to live. My life was living hell. It was miserable. So I want to read one of the daily readings from the fellowship that I'm involved in. And it's for today. I find it very fitting. And it says, carrying the message, not the addict. They can be analyzed, counseled, reasoned with, prayed over, threatened, beaten, or locked up, but they will not stop until they want to stop. And that's very true for me. I tried to stop for my parents. It didn't work. I tried to stop for the court system so I wouldn't get locked up. That didn't work. I tried to stop to keep women in my life. That didn't work. It stopped when I said, I can't do this anymore. I can't feel how I felt anymore. And addicts aren't bad people, a lot of them. A lot of them are good people that are lost and caught up in something and don't know how to deal with their own feelings, their own life. I've met people that have done heroin. I've met people that have done meth. I've met people that have smoked crack. I've met people that have done pretty much every drug. And I'm not going to say they didn't do some things that were immoral. I'm going to say that they weren't bad people because I saw the other 98% of their life that was around them, not just that one act. Just like I can't judge a police officer based upon one thing that they do to somebody else. You don't see the whole story. You see one sentence in a story when you're coming into these situations, and you have to remember that. All these people have families. They all have things that they care about. They all have things that they love. And sometimes you have to be love. One thing that always worked for me in situations with police, or one thing that I recognize in situations with police, is I was less anxious when they didn't come in with this domineering, I'm going to control you, you're going to listen attitude. And I understand that in certain situations that may be necessary, but the majority of the situations it isn't. If you understand the basic mechanics of psychology, people have a fight or flight mechanism. And if you're in control of that situation, if you want to protect yourself, you have to recognize that you control the situation, and sometimes it's going to be by being empathetic, being understanding, and not coming in trying to domineer the situation. I got pulled over this summer, and the cop came in with this very controlling attitude. I clammed up. I was talking about, I don't have to tell you anything, and it became uncomfortable for everybody because I felt violated. Police officers are civil servants, if I'm not mistaken, so that means that they have to protect and serve, and that means everybody, because I know a lot about immorality, and I know a lot about compromising things, and if you compromise yourself for one situation, everything can then become compromised. I can't talk a lot about morality. I'm just learning that. Immorality, I know all about it. And when you start justifying things, you can justify a lot of negative stuff. When I was driving over here, I saw something on the back of a Youngstown police cruiser that really stuck out to me. And on the back of it, it said pride, commitment, and service. There's a lot to be said in those things. Those are things that are valuable to anybody. I have a lot of pride in myself today because I do my best to do the next right thing. And I do the next right thing in situations where there's nobody else to see it but myself. And that says a lot about me. Granted, I don't always do the next right thing. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. And I don't ever want to think that I am perfect or that I'm better than anybody, because that puts me in dangerous territory. Commitment. I'm committed to my recovery. I'm committed to doing the next right thing. If I lose my commitment, then commitments are going to be made for me. I've been committed to a psychiatric ward against my will. I've been committed to the Juvenile Justice Center. I've been committed to jails in Nevada. Actually, both were in Nevada. So I know all about that. Service. I've had to do community service that I didn't want to do for my actions. Today I get to do service by being here, by helping out with nonprofits, by helping people, just by being a decent human being. And I'm going to close with these two quotes and then open up for any questions if anybody has. There are two ways of exerting one's strength. One is pushing down, the other is pulling up. And I'm going to riff on that concept a little bit. When you're pushing down and exerting strength that way, it might work for a time, but it's not going to work all the time. When you're pulling people up, then you have more people on your side. So if you're lifting people up, raising their spirits, you're going to have a lot more people on your side than when you're pushing down. The next one will be, if you want the cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel they are important. And you do that by being genuine and by being humble. And I don't know any of you. I love, respect, and appreciate all of you. Not because I know anything that you've done, but because you're people and we're sharing this planet together and we all are here for each other. I don't feel that I'm better than any of you. I've said that. I don't feel that anyone here is better than me. How you carry yourself after this sets the tone for your own life, and how you perceive yourself is going to set the tone for your life and everybody else's around you. And that's my timer telling me to stop talking. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Don't hold back.
What is your plans now? Like, what is your goal overall?
My overall goal, thanks for asking that, Michael. My overall goal is to continue what I'm doing and to be somebody to help reduce the stigma associated with mental illness and addiction. I want to be, I don't want to say a motivational speaker, but maybe somebody that can shed some light on those things. I want to share some of my spiritual experiences with people too. As I said, I'm not religious. If I had to get into that, I'd like to promote the philosophy of omnism, which is all religions have truth, and they're all basically fundamental. The fundamental concept of all of them is love, respect, and tolerance. And I want to spread that message. And granted, I'm just a little person, but I can do things daily to spread that message, which is being respectful, even if it's just holding the door for somebody, asking somebody how their day is, sharing a smile. I want to make the world a better place by little actions, because I'm not strong enough to do it in big ways, but that's what I would like to do. So thank you for asking that. Yes, sir.
You were talking about the traffic stop that was performed. Obviously, the officer didn't know about you. He probably never met you before. How should he go about dealing with people? Was it just his attitude towards you, or were you afraid? Like, how did the situation arise?
The one this summer, it was, his attitude from the start was that he was suspecting me of doing something wrong. I was driving my friend home, and I had an 86 Ford Escort at the time. I was driving my friend home, and it was late at night. I had an older car, and back then my hair was down to here. I cut my hair when I got clean, so I assumed that he ran my plates as well, so my history would have came up, and I was being profiled as a drug user. So that was my perception of it, and his attitude that came across was, where's the drugs at? What are you doing wrong? He also at one point basically lied to us because he said he was going to call the canine unit on us, and he never did. So being genuine and being concerned about someone's welfare, that resonates with people, in my opinion. Your intentions are presented to people before you're even aware of it. I would say, at least I can sense that in a lot of situations. Maybe that's just me, but on the good times when it happened, when I had good experiences with cops when I was pulled over, they came up to me. They were respectful to me. They viewed me as an individual. There was a time when I was in Washington State, and I had left Las Vegas with no license and a warrant out for my arrest because I didn't show up for a DUI, and I didn't know that that was even out for me. I got stopped in Jackpot, Nevada. They gave me another DUI for having pot in my system and then driving on a suspended license. I had to drive from there to Washington, which is about an 18-hour drive, like on double secret probation or whatever. And the cop up there, he caught me driving as I was getting ready to leave Washington, and he said, "Where are you going?" And I was like, I told him my story. I was like, I'm working at this summer camp up here. I'm getting ready to go down the coast to check out Northern California. And what he said to me is, get to where you're going, park your car. I understand you're not a bad person. If I see you driving again, you're going to go to jail. I parked the car, didn't move it an inch, because I respected that cop because he was respectful to me. So, I mean, that's one of the positive ones. So, I don't know. I think that answered it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it's just the cop's attitude, how he first comes up to you, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's true in most situations, I would say. Thanks, Kyle. That was a good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I want to start. You are a wonderful public speaker.
Thank you.
Second part. Did you ever have like run-ins with female officers? And if you did you ever feel like there was a difference in the treatment either way?
Not that I recollect. Most of the time it was men, and a lot of the times when it was negative, it was because they were trying to be dominant and assert control in a negative way, rather than garnish respect or gain respect. I would say that women tend to be more empathetic and a lot more compassionate, and that's just in my personal experience. Outside of that, there's this common concept of masculinity being dominant and aggressive and all these kind of things, and it's really played out, I would say, because it doesn't show power. To me, that shows weakness when you have to act that way. Power is letting yourself be vulnerable and seeing humans, and it sounds counterintuitive, but people get it, they get it. If they don't, they don't. I'm not here to dilute my experience. So I hope that answers your question somewhat. Thank you for the compliment. Yes, sir.
Just kind of, we have our instructors who tell us one point about like handling certain situations, like going into it with like command presence and all that stuff. From a different perspective, how do you request that we balance that out, go into a domestic dispute call where, you know, it ends up being, I'm not really know how to put this correctly, but it ends up being a different problem than just a domestic, like they have like a mental illness or something like that.
Having not been violent, I can't really say specifically how to handle violence. But the thing is, with people with mental illness, they're not in their right mind. Like when I was thinking about all those things, I wasn't in my right mind. So how you come to the situation, you have to be cautious to protect yourself and the people in those situations, but you also have to be cautious of not inciting that fight or flight mechanism. I can't speak specifically because I don't have experience in those situations, and if any of my opinions would be, I don't want to say something and have you think that it's the truth and then get you in the deep situation. You know, there's a time and place for every action, I would say, and you have to protect people, but you also have to protect yourself as well. I have faith in your ability to discern the appropriate situations. It's just blanket dominance is not going to work, and I'm sure that they teach you that
Right.
as well. Hope that answers your question,
Yes,
Thomas.
it did.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Alright, so when you're dealing with somebody who has like a mental break, like you said, and they're like actively, I don't know how to put this, but like losing it, pretty much.
Actively psychotic.
Oh yeah, that one. Thank you. What do you think the best way to like de-escalate the situation would be?
Be empathetic. Just try to understand where they're coming from, even if it doesn't make sense. See the individual before you see the illness, and realize that if that was someone in your family, you know what I mean, or like, I don't know if you have a brother or sister or whatever, or one of your friends in that situation, how would you treat them? And I mean, with like, use compassion. When I was on the way to the psych ward, the cops somewhat laughed about the situation, and that was okay in that situation then, but when I got out, that kind of messed with me, because there's a stigma associated with these things that people in those situations have to overcome the way people perceive them. So if you're their first interaction before they go into the psych ward or something, they have a barrier to overcome. It was hard as hell for me to get to a position where I felt comfortable talking about being in those situations, because everybody has the stigma associated with it, you know? Like, if you didn't see me talking about these experiences in a calm and what I hope looks collected manner, how would you perceive that? You know what I mean? And these people in those situations are just like me in many ways. It's just they're in a situation to where they're not in control of where their mind is. So compassion, empathy, and again, discernment to keep them safe, yourself safe, and anybody else safe. I would say that's probably the best course of action. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
So, when you were stopped, I think it was like California, where you were walking in the middle of the street, and then you said there's two officers. Now, at that point, you know, you were thinking that you weren't in the right spot, or like, you know, not in the real world, and that they were taking you to like the real world. Now, was it like challenging for them to not get on your level, but to be able to like communicate with you, to be able to get you into the cruiser, or to help you to take you to this other place to get help, or like you were pretty like understanding?
I was compliant.
Okay.
Yeah, I was compliant. They actually really de-escalated it, even though I thought all those negative things. One of the police officers was very respectful, calming, and just genuine, I would say, genuinely concerned, because that was one of the things they said. We're concerned about your well-being. We heard this. We're worried about you hurting yourself. And I think that people can understand that regardless of where they're at, that people can understand someone that's caring over somebody that's trying to harm them, and that's what literally saved my life in more ways than one, because at that time I was also thinking about going, like, running away from where I was at, losing my phone and disconnecting from everybody, and who knows where I would be if I would have done that. So
you almost kind of believe that to a certain extent, almost wherever they are mentally in their own, if you just come up genuinely concerned and show compassion and show, you know, empathy and all that, that it's a lot easier to have them trust you or have them care about you.
I would say in most situations that would be true. I won't make a blanket statement and say in all of them, because I've interacted with certain people just being on the street and things like that, that there was no way to reason with them, and you could be as kind as you want, and it won't make a difference.
That's when, like, forceful.
Yeah, I'm sure that you'll get it. I'm sure your instincts will kick in, and you'll feel it when you feel it. That's the best answer I can give. I'm sorry if it's kind of nebulous. Hope that helps, though, brother. Thank you, Dustin. That was a good question. This will be the last one. What's up, Michael?
How do you, like, let's say you interact with someone or you're coming across someone as an officer or someone standing on the outside, how do you tell when that breakdown is happening, and what's a good way to, I guess, get them help without offending them or making them want to react? Because you want to help them without, you know, stepping on their toes or making them feel, you know, like you're offending them.
That's really going to be a nebulous answer too, because it's very individualized. There's certain things that I think that will cross over for everybody in certain ways, expressing concern for them, but there's been times where people express concern for me, and it didn't work also. So you have to use your best judgment and think of what way is going to calm this person down, and think about if it was people that you know in those situations, I guess, is my best answer. I apologize that it can't be more concise, but I don't want to tell you something that I don't.
No, it was good enough. I gather it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, Ross. I just wanted to point out real quick, and we'll let you go, Hope, is I don't know how many of you caught it when Ross said, you know, that before anything else, see him as a person. And I mean, that's a pretty impactful sentence right there, that, you know, no matter what the person you're dealing with, whether they're a criminal, whether they're somebody that you're just helping with, you know, on the side of the road, whether it's somebody in a mental health crisis, you know, I mean, if you just first see them as a person, you know, and try to do that approach. And I think that it pretty much came across, at least for Ross, that, you know, showing respect. And one of the things the lesson plan says, Ross, and I don't know if you'd agree or not, is usually the first 10 seconds of an encounter with anybody is what sets the tone. You know, if an officer is going to be assaulted, it's based on what your impression in the first 10 seconds. And if somebody comes across with that domineering and tries to control you, that's going to set the tone for the rest of the encounter, as opposed to if they come across genuine and compassionate and saying things like, you know, I want to help you, or, you know, I'm concerned about you. You know, makes you probably feel more comfortable, and that sets the tone. So
I would agree completely with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Let me shut this off.